Welcome all to the B2B media sessions here at the Marketing Practice. Today's session is ABX from Dream to Reality. But first, I just want to really touch on the overall plan for us this week. We have a series of great sessions on that we've been broadcasting across the course of the week. So please do check in on the marketingpractice.com site for any of those. As I said, today we've got ABX from Dream to Reality. I'm Marcus Wilkinson. I'm the Chief Media Officer at the Marketing Practice. And with me today, I've got three fantastic panelists for us to talk about ABX. Kelly Felston, my colleague, is the VP of Media. We have Saima Rashid, who is SVP of Marketing and Revenue Analytics over at Sixth Sense. And then we've got Karim Azar, who's the Senior Director of Global Digital and Web Marketing at Reltio. So we're going to have a panel discussion around three of the key topics. But first, we're going to have Karim talk about sharing really some of his experiences as they've made a huge shift into ABX and have got what is an award-winning model to talk about and have had incredible results. So I'm going to drop at this point and pass over to you, Karim, to get started, and then we can jump into the questions after.
Awesome. Thank you, Marcus. Let me pull up a couple of slides here. All right. Well, welcome, everybody. I'm happy to share with you the journey that Reltio has been on over the last 2 years as we've moved from a world of measuring MQLs to, truly an account-based model where, we've thrown out MQLs and we just focus in on accounts and opportunities. First, just a little bit about who Reltio is. We're a smaller organization. We're about 400 employees worldwide. We've been seeing really good growth in our space, in the master data management space. From a marketing point of view, these last couple of years, we've been recognized for the work we've done, which has been really exciting because we've seen it from how do we set up the program all the way through to, our work with both Sixth Sense and with TMP on how we actually operationalize and take this to market. Reltio, we specialize in unifying, managing, and mobilizing your core data. So we have a platform that sits within the business, pulls data from all of your disparate business applications, brings those all together, and allows us to connect the dots from product to customers to our internal people to sales data and everything, and you get one clean view of what the business is doing, all the way to the point where we are actually using it in our marketing activities. We're using it in our success metrics. We're using it all internally to have a really good foundation of data internally. But you're not here to hear about Reltio, but more about what Reltio is doing. So we were in a position where here at Reltio, we sell to really, really large organizations. We have a really long sales cycle. 18 months is pretty normal for our sales cycle. They are large deals. And we're operating in a place where, we have one person who downloads a PDF, we call them an MQL, and we send them over to sales. And we expect that to close into a six-figure deal, right? Mid to high six-figure deal, if anything. Our conversion rate was terrible. Pipe volume, you could say was huge, but was it really anything that anybody wanted to work on? We would sometimes not even have contacts on opportunities when they would go into the sales team, and they'd be driving us crazy. It's like, who am I supposed to call? Who am I supposed to talk to? We didn't know what the buying team was doing. In BDR and our BDR team and the marketing team were just chasing after volume and not really worried about what the conversions were. So in the span of 60 days, we were fortunate that we had a pretty good tech stack internally. And it was, okay, how do we break down all these silos? How do we reimagine all the work that we're doing, deepen that partnership with our sales team, and really start measuring the outcomes that we want to get to. And we were able to do all of that within 60 days. It was literally 2 months before the fiscal year started, and we had a go live date on the first day of our first fiscal year. we all know, in this shift, we're moving from a place where you take that one person, right? And try to, build out an opportunity and build out a sale. We all know in these long sales cycles and these large deals that, there's a lot of people who touch on these. Like for us to sell $1 million, $1.5 million product at times, there's 7, 8, 9, 12 people who are going to touch that. There's not any one person who's going to be able to make the decision on that sale. We wanted to shift the way we thought about how we build out those opportunities. And when we looked at our funnel, we're like, okay, where are the places that make sense for us in order to up that conversion rate, in order to be able to move forward and actually deliver to our sales team truly qualified opportunities, right? It takes a lot more work on the marketing side. It takes a lot more work on the BDR side. And it also takes a lot more work on the sales side because they've got to give us that feedback and make sure that we're reaching the right people, and making sure that we're aligned on the accounts that we want to go after and the use cases in order in which we want to deliver. So we spent some time looking at our tech stack. We started at aligning at the leadership level, strategic planning. And when I say leadership level, I'm talking C-staff, right? We established a revenue council. We made this play and push into ABX a strategic objective for the company, right? So every single employee at Reltio was bonused on whether or not we make this happen or not. It drove the shift across the entire business. We have product people who all of a sudden are not, don't even know, never knew what an MQL was to begin with, but now we're talking about buying teams, and now we're talking about use cases for certain groups. Having that alignment was huge. We then, had to look at our go-to-market team and how do we bring sales and marketing together, get the ops team to play in one field, right? Try to streamline all the technologies that we have. We updated comp for our BDRs and their incentives. So they're no longer just trying to create meetings. They're actually having to create qualified opportunities. So it's not enough for them just to get a person in a meeting. It's, they've got to get bank qualified and they've got to have a meeting and then have that convert. We've got regular meetings internally, looking at our pipeline and inspecting it and making sure that we understand what's going on in there. And then most probably relevant for here is we really coordinated all of our campaigns, from the very, very top of the funnel, from awareness all the way through to qualification into the sales funnel, and aligned that to our actual funnel that we look at internally and all the metrics that are there. So what's that look like? We went from a view on the left side of this where you've got web visits, leads, MQLs, and into the sales funnel, right? It's a pretty standard funnel that a lot of people are very, very familiar with. To one that, and Saima can probably recognize some of the words there, we really aligned it to the intent signals and things that we pulled from Sixth Sense. And we look at our audience and our account lists as, suspect, detected, engaged, prioritized. Now we added some intelligence behind those things, right? So we took our entire target account list, essentially created opportunities against every single account inside our systems, and placed them up into suspect. These are essentially the people that we think we can go sell to. They may or may not have a project. They may or may not know what MDM is. They probably do not know who Reltio is. Well, we stuck them up at the top of the funnel there. And as we get signals from those accounts, they start moving down, right? And they move into our detected stage. As we start uncovering individuals, they move into our engaged stage. Once we get 3 engaged contacts on an opportunity, they move into our prioritized stage, right? Even at that point, we're not calling them a qualified opportunity yet. We've got 3 people taking meaningful actions on a specific opportunity inside of our go-to-market engine. And that's who we have our BDRs reaching out to. So you can see when our BDR leader loves to talk about it as we don't do inbound or outbound, we do all bound, right? So they're catching everything that comes in bound. They are doing their outbound work in those target accounts, and at the same time, we are creating an environment and bringing the awareness to our BDR team of what those contacts are doing on those opportunities, so that when they are doing their outbound work, they've got a qualified pool in which to reach out to, as opposed to just cold calling essentially at the top of the funnel. Um, once we move them into qualification, that's at the point where BDR comp happens and we enter them into our sales funnel, and we have our tie to our AEs. And what we've seen from that point on is much faster pipe velocity. Deals don't get hung up in the sales pipeline anymore because they're so much more qualified in order to get there. We've choked off, frankly, where we are right there in the middle of the funnel, right? We had a ton of volume in that place pre ABX to a place where we're catching up now 2 years later to that volume, but the quality that's coming through there is remarkable, uh, and moving through that. So this really took, an entire team on the agreements where all these handoffs happen to what these definitions mean, and making sure that we're all aligned and working towards that same goal. So how did we apply that into kind of our campaigns and our media? We took that same funnel and we designed, with TMP, a campaign structure aligned to where accounts and opportunities are in those funnels. We've got horizontal campaigns that overlap with our vertical campaigns by intention, so that we can be more efficient with our media dollars. We get the awareness that we want across the accounts that we care about, and we move them through the funnel and make them better qualified and achieve that conversion rate that we're looking for down at the bottom of the funnel. We've got specific activities and actions that happen at each stage. So at the awareness place, it's just, hey, you've got this problem and you don't trust the quality of your data in your system. There's a solution out there for you. It's kind of the ads that we're playing at that awareness place. And then in education, it's looking at that detected stage. We know that they're starting to get interested in who Reltio is. We know that have some knowledge to what the technology does. So it's, did you know that there's a great solution out there? We're a Forrester Wave leader, right? Check out the report, see how we compare to some of the other competition that you may be looking at. The uncover level is, a lot of document ads, a lot of places where, request a demo. Here, it's at this point where we're trying to, uncover who those contacts are, right? Get them to identify themselves, so that we can have that pool of people for our BDRs to reach out to. At the same time, we have all of our vertical campaigns. We treat our competitive campaign similar to a vertical, where this is kind of the air cover, talking to our audience, right? Hitting the pain points that we know an insurance organization or a financial service organization has, and how Reltio can solve those problems for them. So you could see now we don't have to worry in our industry campaigns and our vertical campaigns on trying to convert people and trying to push out the technology message and push out, all of these other things, because we've got them also in the horizontal places where they're getting those messages and they're intermingling with each other. And we can do some really creative and unique things in the way that we place media to capture people at the point that they're interested. Obviously, we've got retargeting and paid search. Those are always on. They're going to hit everybody in the funnel at whatever point they're at. Those are all intent-based campaigns. And then we do conversion campaigns where we pair up with our BDR team on how we can now take those prioritized, engaged opportunities and actually get them into the funnel and do unique messaging, unique nurturing. Here's a lot where the AI application that we use with 6sense, really plays, and being able to reach out to those organizations and those people and bring them in. We aligned on our measurements internally. So our entire go-to-market team, the way that when we implemented this, we're like, okay, a year later, what are some of the things that we want to make sure of? And we aligned that we want better pipe quality. So we want to increase the volume into our discovery stage by 10%. We surpassed that. We want to, reduce the time in qualification our qualification stage by 14 days. So get more pipe into the funnel as fast as possible. We surpassed that. We had a pipeline volume target so that we can achieve our booking targets, and we passed that. All of the metrics looked really, really positive at the end of a year, and allowed us in this second year that we were going into it to really start humming and doubling down on all that work. And now that we've done this for a few years, you can actually see over the course of that time the difference in our conversion rates and how it works. So if you orient yourself all the way to the left of this, we had a ton of volume and opportunities, right? We were creating MQLs. It's, you ask any marketer, it's super, super easy to go run a content syndication campaign, drive a whole bunch of quote unquote MQLs and just deliver those over to the BDRs, right? We were doing things back then like get a free t-shirt to have a conversation with us, and the BDRs would hate it because they have no idea who we are. They just want their free t-shirt, right? And with that volume, we had super low conversion rates. Most everything was getting flushed out. It wasn't meaningful, and it actually just caused a lot of headaches within the team, right? Because we didn't trust each other, right? Marketing is saying, hey, we're giving you all these people, what's going on there? And they're looking at us like, well, all these people are kind of crappy, we don't want to talk to them, right? To this day, a couple years later, we actually can't use the word content syndication internally. It's actually kind of funny because it's got such a bad rap, even though we do use it, and we do different ways and different things, and we make it work. When we flipped that switch, like I said, we choked off our funnel, and you could see like we had fewer opportunities enter into the sales funnel, but our conversion rate went through the roof, right? It was better than 17%. We still have open opportunities out there just because we have such a long sales cycle. So we actually expect that to go up over the next couple of months at the same time. And then when we look at our last year on top of it, we're catching up to the volume we were at a handful of years ago. Our conversion rates increasing even further. That green line there is kind of what, if we just stay at the rate that we were in 23, where we should land when we look back at all of those open opportunities that we created last year. Because again, we have such a long sales cycle, so we're trying to forecast out where we're at. And, this is just a huge testament to, where the quality has gone in this process, and the ability to be able to close actual business through this whole thing. So, to say that, we've been very, very happy internally, it's kind of a understatement, but, it's been through the process and the work that we've done with all of our partners, and, in that internal alignment that we've had in order to achieve these goals. So I think with that, Marcus, that was kind of the really quick and brief update of Reltio and what we've been doing. I can pass that kind of back over to you.
Great, thank you, Karim. I think listening to it, look, it's a fantastic story with a set of results I saw some other facts around it, something around 50% fewer closed lost deals. And there was a bunch of other stats and data points, which are all just, remarkable in terms of the performance. I think what's interesting, I thought was one of the things you said just a few minutes ago around company incentives and, bonusing the whole business on the transformation. And it kind of ties to a quite interesting point, I think, around quite often, I think the focus can be on the tech, whereas actually there's a huge cultural shift that's required. And I was interested to kind of hear you talk maybe a bit about what do you think the biggest kind of mind shift set is required in the company, and how do you go about that? Besides obviously throwing money at the team to incentivize them, what are the other things that you do?
Yeah, I mean, it was a mix of all of that, right? So, I made it a point in that one slide, like we had invested in a tech stack already. And in order to go into this process, we didn't have to make additional investments in tech. right? It was all about how do we, you know, we identified there's a problem, right? We have a very, very leaky funnel, right? And we said, okay, rather than trying to crack the whip and fix those leaks, maybe we just need a different bucket, right? And have that alignment internally as to this is what that bucket should look like. This is how we should um, implement this, right? And get everybody on board. Um, we were very fortunate. We had a marketing leader and a sales leader, and executive leaders who bought into this very early, saw what the value was. We thought we would have 6 months to do it, not 60 days. But we ran and we made it happen. And, having all of that alignment. Now, obviously, Reltio is a 450 person company now, right? It's a much easier organization, right, to be able to drive some of those changes and work across the entire business than say a 10,000 person organization. But I still think those fundamentals and that work still needs to happen, right, before you can really launch into this.
What do you think about the 60 days piece? Because you hear the number and you're like, how the hell did you get all that done in 60 days? But do you think that helped kind of focus everybody, having a shorter window rather than an open-ended timescale to try and get this kind of project done?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we were trying to close out the year with our sales ops team, prioritizing transactions over doing all this work and still trying to get across the finish line to set this all up for the following year, right? So that focus was really, really important. And I'll be honest, those first months after we flipped the switch and we choked the funnel, we're like, what did we just do? And it was like, hold on a second, this was by design, right? This is what we were trying to accomplish. We got to reorient the metrics we're looking at. We've got to reorient ourselves at the start and just kind of power through it.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story, I think. Simon, I'd like to get you in and get your perspective on it, because obviously being 6sense and the platform that Reltio work with gives you a perspective on their business, but you work with many vendors, many customers or clients around the world. Do you see similar characteristics and trends in the way that Karim and his team approached it across other clients as well, this focus on mindshare as well as the tech and bringing those two together?
Absolutely. I mean, what a great story, Karim, for you and your team. We love to see a program built around the technology. And I think that's the focus here is we have a lot of very successful customers, and things that are common across all of them is it is strategy. Number one, they're starting with a game plan. It is not a tool's going to come in and solve everything. There is change management that needs to happen. So even just going in, understanding that that's the reality. This is a change and it will take time. In some cases, 60 days, in some cases longer. That's number one. And then secondly, I think an account-based initiative is all about focus, right? It's about focusing on the most winnable accounts for any given company, but also it's not a marketing initiative or a sales initiative. It's one team. And I love how Karim spoke about this starting right at the top, right? Your CEO was involved. This was not, a random act of marketing that somebody had an idea for. This was an organizational change. And so having buy-in from each of those groups is almost always, I see, a critical factor to just the success of the program, because marketing can do what they want over here. If sales not bought in and not willing to take fewer qualified opportunities with a higher conversion rate, guess what? The program won't work. And so that focus and the strategy, and then, all the little pieces that start to build on this, really honing in on your ICP, making sure that, we all have limited budgets, let's be honest. Do we have clear ICP definitions? Does sales agree on that ICP definition? All right, here's what marketing is going to do at the front end of the funnel. Here's how we're going to tackle, that entire ICP based on not a one-size-fits-all strategy, because again, that defeats the purpose. It really is about meeting your prospect where they are and providing them with a really rich experience. And let's be honest, your prospects are getting rich experiences in every other part of their life on the B2B side, on the B2C side. And so they really are expecting it on the B2B side as well.
Yeah, I love it. I think when I hear a technology company say it's not all about technology, you're like, okay, that's great. I love that, because I think you're absolutely right. Do you see one of the things you touched on there was about sales have got to buy in and agree across client sets? Do you see trends or things that people are doing to help to get sales and marketing on the same page? Because we all know, like, the theory is great, but the practice of actually making that happen is really difficult. So I'd love to hear from you on that.
Yes, and here's where I'm going to lean in on tech, because I know I talked about strategy, obviously, over software, but the right tech can break down those silos. If there is a single source of truth, a single view of the world, a single definition for your ICP, sales can see what marketing has done to warm up an account. Marketing can see when sales is making touches on an account. Guess what? All of a sudden, you've broken down those silos. And so providing visibility, which is something that Sixth Sense does right in, wherever your sellers work, I think that's crucial. And then not just the visibility, but then making it really easy to activate on those signals as well, right? I was a customer of Sixth Sense before I joined the company, and so I've been on the other side of things. And if I had told my sellers, you now have to log into this new platform called Sixth Sense, and I want you to be looking at things there, nobody would do it. We have to put the signals and the intelligence where your sellers work, whether that's in CRM, whether that's in a sales engagement platform. And so I think really bringing visibility and actionability to the sellers, and then beyond that, having really clear measurement criteria and inspection. In order to make a program work, you obviously need the right KPIs, but you also need to measure what you want to manage. And so that's, again, where that alignment becomes key. If marketing is passing somebody, in Karim's case, where 3 people have been engaged on that account, guess what? Sales should follow up with the 3 and probably go find 3 more to outreach to. And so, again, having those SLAs and clear rules of engagement, another key criteria.
Yeah. Single source of truth. I don't think I get a single source of truth about the finances in my own house, no matter at work. So, Kelly, I think one of the things I just thought while we were just talking about technology and platforms is, my first thought around that is data signals. And we work obviously at TMP, we work with lots of clients and we work with lots of vendors around intent and different conversations around that. What do you think, or what do you see from the people that we work with, are the meaningful in market kind of accounts, and what are the metrics that you see that you think are of value, and how that we see clients using them?
In terms of executing in media programs?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the Reltio case, obviously we narrowed in and leveraged Sixth Sense and the power of the intent data there. And I think, like Karim and Simon said, I mean, centering there and saying, this is what we're going to start with, this is what we're going to use, we all agree on this. It really was able to help us hone in and say, okay, this is what the funnel looks like, this is how we're measuring intent, and those sorts of things. So I see, with a lot of clients, like if we have access to those ABM tools, we will really lean into them, because 1, clients are already paying for them and paying for that data. So why don't we use them to kind of get started with some sort of, overall account segmentation strategy that reflects in media. And then just, getting that into market. Beyond that, though, I mean, when there's not account-based tools, I mean, Marcus, too, but we have access to tons of different intent data. I think it's really identifying what that ICP is, looking at the kind of landscape of the B2B data partners out there, and then doing that testing. So if we're, implementing in a different DSP, we're looking at layering those different types of B2B data providers, because they're not a one size fits all, right? I mean, you could have one data set over here that really is great for finding like manufacturing individuals, while one over here maybe finds like some other kind of interesting, different B2B audience. So it's really about testing them and making sure that you are seeing some of those metrics through the funnel and feeling like, you are impacting those individuals. And then, yeah, just leaning into what's working and what's not working. And I think the other big thing to hit on is just that funnel-based approach that we created is, I mean, it's just killer, right? I mean, we're giving different messages. We're using data to really nurture people where they're at. And I think that is just so valuable instead of really like doing that spray and pray of like prospecting out and then just like retargeting people from your website.
You know, that shift to more of the buying group focus. Sorry, Karim, go ahead. You got something
I
on
wanted
that?
to add with Kelly, like how cool is it when we're sitting in our meetings, we're not sitting talking about impressions and click-through rates, right?
Yes.
We're talking about how many accounts moved from stage to stage.
Yes, exactly. And
Right.
it's just, I mean, the fact that the whole team over there too, not to like toot your horn again, but is that everybody understands those account-based metrics. And like, yes, we're looking at impressions, we're looking at click-through rate. We obviously want to make sure that like within platforms, we're hitting those like, you know, average benchmarks and making sure that we're, you know, we're not just seeing nothing there. But we also focus on those account metrics, and like 6 Sense has, you know, your account engagement rates, your account click-throughs, and those are things you can't get in other platforms, but they are so valuable when you're telling that account-based story.
On the using that data point in meetings and actually maybe even starting to help it feed back in, determine about who and how you target in the buyer group. You know, I was thinking we have clients where we can see from the data and they know that the more C-suite contacts or the more certain number of contacts that they get leads to a higher deal value, or maybe a quicker deal velocity, one of those two things. And you can see that happens. And when they've got that data and information, I think it's easier for them to shift and focus from MQLs and individuals into kind of targeting accounts and trying to engage with the larger buying group. But Karim, as you went through that process, are there key lessons and things that you think would help to other companies who have not seen the results to educate? And I think, Simon, you're probably in the same place, right? You guys have both got experiences to share on that, where you're helping, you know, to transmit those key lessons to people before they see it themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, you know, it's really keying in. Simon talked about, you know, honing in on that ICP, right? Keying in on, you know, who is the fit for what you're trying to go after, and where you can be successful. We've done some tests on how do we expand that market, right? How do we expand that buying group and those influencers? And, you know, we've got a bunch of great learnings around that. And it's constantly a, you know, in the end, we do want qualified opportunities, right? And it's constantly a, you know, how are we going to achieve those financial goals, right, within the structure that we have built, in order to get there.
Yeah, and what I'd add is, you know, signal, there's a lot of signal out there at the end of the day, right? At some point, you know, I would say intent data has become commoditized, right? You can go out and pick an intent vendor, but the quality and the volume of that data, and more importantly, how we contextualize it to your patterns of success and the outcomes that you're looking to drive, is probably the most important. 6 Sense, our Signalverse, processes 1 trillion data points a day, believe it or not. Every single day, 1 trillion data points. And that tells me there's a whole lot of noise. Are all trillion, you know, applicable to every customer? Absolutely not. And so the processing that we do there to really weed out the noise and find the real intent signals that tie back to your closed won opportunities, that's things that, because the volume is so high, the machine learning, the AI is critical to find those patterns, Marcus, before you can find them yourself, right? We can see of all the signal, it's really this portion that happens 90, 120 days before you open an opportunity. Let's go find more companies that are exhibiting those signals. And so whether it's using natural language processing to read websites and understand what some, you know, contextualizing what specifically pieces of content reflect, and then providing that granular intent data back to marketers so they can inform their content strategy and speak to their prospects about those topics, whether it's giving that to sellers and saying, we see these specific topics being researched by this account, use it in your outreach, use it in your subject lines. That's how you really start to take that what could be a commoditized sort of, intent signal and really make it contextual and make it actionable.
How do you think, or maybe what would your advice be to marketers who are struggling to get the business to adopt that and shift away from MQLs? And we exist in a world, right, where quite often people are targeted within a short-term window. I need leads this quarter, and I think that's a struggle probably for people to enable to drive that change in the organization. What advice would you have on people who are facing that resistance?
Yeah, I was one of them, right? A couple years ago when I was looking for a solution myself. You have to start to educate and build that case, right? So the B2B buying process has changed. And I think let's almost take the metrics, the MQL or the account based out of it. The average B2B buying group is 11 people. So all of a sudden, just you're not talking about an MQL, you were talking about influencing multiple people at an account. That buying group takes an average of 640 interactions across an 11-month journey. Again, volume of activities, length of the buying journey. And the most important stat that came out of recent research that we did was 81% of the time, buyers have picked a preferred vendor before they even reach out to want to talk to you. I mean, mind-blowing, right? So something like that tells me marketers need to be reaching out to prospects early and often, because you've got to cover multiple people across multiple interactions across a very long amount of time. And so take away any sort of, MQL or anything, just that reality is almost a huge catalyst that we need to be doing things differently. And if you don't, you'll end up in those 1% conversion rates of your MQL to qualified opportunity that Karim was speaking about. And you can optimize that funnel, that MQL funnel, and maybe it'll go from 1% to 1.5%. But ideally, you start to point your limited marketing budget, because we all have limited budgets and limited headcount. We start to point those to accounts that are actually in market and actually showing the signals that our previous closed won opportunities did. Let's hone in there. And so I think telling the story of how the B2B buying journey has changed. And one other way that was really helpful for me was just taking 2 or 3 of our closed won deals and mapping out all the touch points that those deals had, the number of personas that were involved, and just up-leveling that to some of the decision makers in the org. We'd gone as far as printing them out on a poster and putting it in the sales area of the company so that everyone understood that it's not an inbound MQL that helps us win a deal. It is all these, 640 touch points that happened before that. And so let's make sure we're sharing that story, and then very quickly people, will want to address it.
Yeah, we had a pretty big deal recently that quite literally had 1,200 touches, identified touches.
Yeah, and that's only the ones that you can see, you can track and see.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
So this is all when it's successful and it's working. What do you guys think are the common pitfalls? Karim, maybe I'll start with you. What are the mistakes that because you must talk to a lot of people about this now, because you're a rock star in this space with this success, right? So do you talk to lots of people and you hear about challenges or mistakes that they're making in on this journey? You got anything to share on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go back. It's organizational alignment, right? That's 100% the first place you should start. We were fortunate that we had a pretty strong tech stack, but we didn't change the tech stack. So like we had all the pieces. It's how do we reimagine them? How do we all align to a new funnel? How do we all align to new metrics and new goals, new processes? There's a reason why we called it ABX internally, because it's not a marketing thing. It was a go-to-market thing. And having that alignment across the business was crucial for us to be able to accomplish any of this. And we've even gone to a point now, it's, we don't do ABX. It's just the way we do business. That's our process, right? There's no such thing as an account-based process or an MQL process, or it's just, that's how Reltio does marketing and go to market. You know, so having that alignment, having those shared goals, you know, we're all driving to the same outcome was really key. We still have instances today where we've got to do the education, right? And we got to remind, you know, here are the tools that you have, you know, here's how you read those things. Simon talked about that visibility, you know, and fortunately we have our own tool that can help bring a lot of that visibility forward. Also where, you know, we've got dashboards and we've got different intelligence so that when a BDR is doing their all bound activities, right, that they've got all these different data points and all these different places that they can pull from in order to reach out to people. And then we on marketing can take that and see what's resonating, what's not resonating. Should we develop a campaign around that, right? Because we're seeing a lot of traction, you know, with certain messages that are happening, you know, and continue optimizing and working through that.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think siloed approach, I think not having the right measurement practices in place, not enabling the teams and bringing them along the journey. I think, you know, again, it's a change even for the BDRs, it's a change for sellers, it's a change for digital marketers. And so making sure people feel empowered to use the tools in the right way. And, you know, I think even with the change in measurement and comp, like Karim said, there is that moment of panic, right? We've turned something off or we're doing things a different way. And so having the right leading indicators, because maybe a qualified opportunity is a couple weeks or a month away. What else can we be looking at in the meantime to understand, is this working? Are we seeing, you know, more ICP accounts on our website? Are we seeing higher engagement? Are we multi-threading more of those initial stage opportunities? Getting those leading indicators in place, because you will have to go and show the success of this. And so you want to have a fairly comprehensive view into what's working and what's not working so that you can pivot and iterate early and often.
And something I just want
Kelly,
to add into there from just the media standpoint, and something I see too is, yeah, I mean, there's an element, right? Not every organization can make this entire organizational shift, you know, to start really thinking about ABM, ABX and testing. So I think there's small things you can do, but one thing that I always try to advise clients to make sure that we don't do is looking channel first and saying, okay, we're going to be doing ABM or ABX because we're applying a target account list and running a media program. And if that's successful, then we can grow from there. I think it's that bigger understanding of like, that's not how to test it. And there's all these other pieces involved, but there's small things to do to maybe give you some of those like indicators that this type of approach would be something to do, but not going all in one way like that.
Yeah, if I could jump in and give one other example, I love that, Kelly, right? Starting small and iterating. Moving away from an MQL approach doesn't mean you turn off all your forms on your website on day one, right? But let's start with a high traffic, low conversion page. So you know you're getting the eyeballs, but you can tell that you know, there's friction there and the assets aren't being consumed. Let's take the form off from there and see what happens. And within a matter of days, you'll start to see a shift in maybe higher consumption of the information that you actually really do want your prospects to see. And so taking a, you know, small bite and then scaling from there is really helpful.
And you can read the people who are doing that, right? I mean, if you have the right tools, you can see the accounts that are looking and use that is in your own intent data to then try to, you know, nurture them to capture leads on other types of assets.
So in terms of Kelly, how you are working with Karim and the team to evolve this project or the media or the way that we're working, what's kind of happening right now on that front?
Yeah, I think, I mean, every year, right, we want to be evolving. We want to make sure we're bringing new and innovative things to the table. We have our core campaigns, right, where we're running across main channels like your LinkedIn's, your 6 Senses, and continuing to figure out, okay, how do we expand and scale from there, but also how do we optimize within those channels? So one of the biggest things that's probably the most valuable to touch on is how we've integrated some of our platforms with the Reltio CRM data. So on the Google side, right, you can't necessarily do account targeting in the way that you can on other channels. But what we have done is integrated the Reltio CRM data into Google. So we're now able to actually optimize towards those engaged leads that we're seeing, and we've seen incredible results in terms of like efficiencies and budgets, making our leads way more higher quality that we're driving. And that's something that we're going to continue to do on some of the other platforms like LinkedIn, so that, you know, we can hone that budget in, loosen other budget to test other things, but know that we're really targeting those right accounts and those engaged opportunities. So that's something, yeah, I think is one of the biggest things that has been super beneficial to the programs recently.
Yeah, I think a lot of those ad platforms out there, they do a really, really good job of tracking an individual person, right? Like, you know, throwing attribution to that person works really, really well. And it's something that's very well understood. And the systems work on that because, you know, there's a cookie involved, there's, you know, an email involved, there's an individual person. That switch that we made in Google by being able to optimize our Google conversions on accounts and opportunities that go into our engaged stage has been a game changer in what we've done in Google. And it's allowed Google's algorithm to start understanding how to serve our ads in a very different way than just going after individual people.
That's great. Thank you. I guess I've got a quick final one really, because I know we're on time. Sima, you're right in the middle of a movement that is gaining huge momentum. How do you see things progressing, you know, moving forwards now over the next year or two, as much as you can see into the future?
Yeah, some really exciting trends. I think Karim said it, and we did not plan this, but you kind of said we're not doing ABM or ABX anymore. It's just the way we run the business, right? And so I think we're seeing that shift as well. It's just good marketing. It's just good selling, right? Meeting your buyer where they are in that journey. It's almost become table stakes. And so this is less of a shift and more of just a reality. Secondly, I would say there's a whole lot around orchestrating that customer and prospect journey, right? We all have different tech point solutions. How do we have this sort of centralized signal that can orchestrate all of those touch points, so that when a nurture email is going out from your marketing automation, when it's a display campaign going out, whether it's a SalesLoft cadence from your sellers, right? They're all kind of speaking in the same way and telling that same story. And so I think the orchestration of an ABX approach, moving from individual acts to a very orchestrated full funnel journey, that's really exciting for me to see, because we see a lot of companies now taking a very strategic approach to how they're going to plan, starting with your ICP, segmenting it based on obviously different types of companies, different intent stages, different keywords, different personas, and really bridging that account to contact gap throughout in one canvas. So that's really exciting to see a lot of companies focusing on a very holistic view of how they're going to market.
Very cool. Thank you. So look, I've got to wrap. It's on time. Appreciate all of you guys' contribution. I think that was a fantastic discussion. I hope everybody watching has gained something from it. You know, we're clearly in the middle of a really exciting time in and around ABX. So appreciate all of you contributing.
So much.
Thank you. Thanks, Marcus.
Thank you, guys.
Bye all.
Bye.